Hello everyone, welcome back to Threes to Wound. I know it's been a hot minute since I've made my last video. There's been lots of things going on, but it's about time I got back to something that I should have finished a long time ago. Today, we're talking about this challenge. You might remember of seeing it on some of your fan favorite pages. It started with Ryan from Command Point's awesome, bulky, tough guy Inquisitor. Then Ben from Battle Brothers Tabletop jumped in, and then of course Russ took it way too far and built not one, not two, but three Inquisitors. Way to set the bar way too high, mate. Well, this is something I completed a long time ago. It's just taken me a very long time to have the time to make a video to show you what I did. Also, let me remind you again how good these guys did at this challenge. Look at this work. This is disgusting stuff. I mean, I've got nothing. I don't know how to use green stuff. Ben used green stuff. That's disgusting. I mean, what's Russ did three guys. What the And I have to follow that. Russ made like three things. One of them was pretty much like a Titan. This is not fair. This definitely put the wind up me in terms of what I had to do and what I had to build with the challenge. The guys had all created really, really cool and unique, interesting Inquisitor models. And I love all things Inquisitor. I love all things about the books and the lore behind the Inquisitors. The one thing I really wanted to do was add a large amount of lore behind my Inquisitor, or at least tie it in closely with something that had a lot of lore to help find a bit of extra character and everything like that. I'm not an amazing, kit basher by any stretch of the imagination. I'm very new to using green stuff. Usually what I'd like to do is I use lots of existing kits and do some little hatchet jobs with, a scalpel and some glue. And that presents its own positives and challenges in of itself. It obviously means that you can usually have preset things. I don't have to worry about the sculpting time or making things, but I do have to find the right parts from the right kits to create the look I'm after. The biggest issue I had here, speaking of all the parts and kits, is my whole collection of bits and pieces was pretty shambolic. It was a bit of a mess, and I'm not sure about you guys. I usually like to keep my hobby stuff relatively ordered or relatively neat, just so I don't go mad. I've obviously always got a really big backlog of painting and projects that are half done, so to then add chaos and mess on top of that, well, my head might just explode. So that was the first thing I did. I spent a night just going through my bits box and putting all the parts where in some form of order or some semblance of a plan. And while I did that, I literally just grabbed bits and pieces that sparked my interest or sparked a bit of creativity, things I thought that looked cool, things I thought that could look like they were part of an Inquisitor, and I just grabbed lots of bits and I ended up with a big pile of lots of random stuff. The interesting thing for me is there's so many types of Inquisitors. They're as varied, the lore behind them is as varied, the different branches, the different groups, how they work together or don't work together. I find that the most interesting, and one of the best stories of an Inquisitor obviously is the Eisenhorn series, which I love. It's one of Dan Abnett is an amazing writer. Gaunt's Ghosts, all that stuff as well that he's done. He's one of my favorite sci-fi writers, let alone just favorite 40k authors. I think his stuff is amazing. All his heresy books are some of my favorite. I just think he does an amazing job of bringing the human element, even to superhuman, beings like Space Marines. He finds an amazing way to make you empathize, care for these characters, or hate them if they're the bad guys, and you're always really, truly devastated when something bad happens to them. One part that I loved about Eisenhorn was some of the other characters that were always in his orbit, and one of them that always really caught my imagination, and obviously the authors as well, because he goes on, when he becomes an Inquisitor of himself, to have his own series of books as well, was Gideon Ravenor. And I think this character is just so cool. There's a really cool, dark, sad, tragic, beautiful story that's so 41st millennium that surrounds this character. But I guess I wanted to make him when he was at that peak of maybe just on the cusp of becoming an Inquisitor, working alongside Eisenhorn. So that was what I sort of set out to do. One of the reasons I really like this particular character as well is, especially in this stage of his life or his career, he was very much he was just a good human, like he was a physically fit dude. He had psychic powers, but he wasn't a big gen enhanced, bulky, tank of of a warrior. He wasn't, one of those guys that relied on brute strength. He was obviously, like his mentor, all about, using his brain and all that sort of stuff, and thinking laterally, and I guess having a great team around him to provide those skills that he might not necessarily have himself. So I found some reference images, and I've sort of just went across and I picked lots of different bits and pieces from lots of different kits to create this more, smaller scale or regular scale Inquisitor, to fit into that world, that it's not always the brawn and the size that wins. Smarts counts even in the 41st millennium, especially when it's backed up by psychic powers. That helps as well. So the basis for this model that I used was just an Imperial Guard. I'm pretty sure it's just from the command squad, a lot of the bodies of that. So I just got that nice sort of robe feel. I used some Tempestus Scion arms to give him the shoulder pads and a bit more of the bulk in the arm area. And that sort of, again, ties back into that image that we sort of saw earlier. For the head, it's an elder head. I know, heresy, but this particular character has a long and interesting history that's often hinted at, so spending some time with the elder. So I obviously did this as well, not just with their head, using the little ponytail there, clipping off the ears and rounding them a little bit, but then I also use that in the main weapon he's carrying there. So it's basically like an elder force spear that I just stole, and I thought that was really cool and thematic for him to carry. It works well again with the psychic powers, and there's another little touch on what's going on with his potential crossing of the line that these Inquisitors do from time to time to help them battle the powers of chaos. I used some Death Corp of Krieg arms as well there. And that's basically what's given him that little feeling where he's signaling his minions forward, and that's kind of the pose I wanted to go for, is that this guy's definitely a leader, but obviously he has his minions and he relies on his henchmen or his team or whatever you want to, retinue, whatever you want to call it, of his Inquisitors, that he relies very heavily on them for a lot of the physical aspects of what he does. He's the smarts, he's the the psychic power behind the team, but he definitely needs more of that physicality or that brawn for more hands-on encounters. He's also got a few more things again from that reference picture. We've got some purity seals. I've popped some scrolls on his back. He's also got his Inquisitor seal just on the pants there. So I really like this character. I think, he looks stoic. He looks like a bit of a fancy fop noble, and that's kind of what I wanted him to be. A lot of the Inquisitors can be like that. They're a bit hoity-toity, bit high society, and especially for Gideon Ravener, he always come across as, high society in the way he presented. He was definitely excelled at everything he did. There was a lot of promise and a lot of great things in his future, and he seemed to be, I guess, the epitome or the height of what being an Inquisitor interrogator was until you passed the tests. After I'd finished making him, though, I had lots of bits left over. And there's so many cool characters from those books, so I started to get inspired, and I started to muck around with how to make other little bits and pieces, and maybe just make a little bit of an extra team. This isn't part of the challenge. This is just because I, get carried away with things. Also, I blame Russ from GFN because, well, he made 3 Inquisitors, so I really felt like I had to keep up. The other guys stuck to the rules, but if Russ is going to break them, well, I'm going to break them too. One of my favorite characters from the books is Harlan Nail, and he's a great character because he kind of flip-flops back and forth between the retinues of both Eisenhorn and Ravener, and he's just this character that's just there for a very long time, and he's just a kind of interesting, powerful sort of mercenary dude that's just a bit of a survivor and just a bit of a fighter. So I sort of started to think about how I could create him. I had some of the Enforcer bodies from Necromunda lying around. I don't even know where I got them from. I think an eBay purchase randomly one day. But I thought they were really cool. That it's sort of, Enforcer, Arbiter kind of armor. Looked really, really cool and bulky. But I didn't want it to be just a carbon cutout. I had to find a way to make it a little bit more unique. So with a combination of that body and legs, using some Tempestus Scion arms, which really actually, once I trimmed them down and cut the tops off a little bit, actually fitted in really, really well. And then I grabbed some Scion backpacks, which I had all the spare comms officer ones, because I love how busy they are with all the different bits and pieces. It just makes them look a little bit more than just a normal backpack. And as I started to do this, I was struggling to find the right head. I found one of the old Cadian heads just from one of the Imperial Guard packs. He's kind of got the bandana, he's got the cool shades, kind of, he's a bit of a cool guy. And when I sort of put it into position on this model, I found out that these guys are actually much bigger scale than I'd originally anticipated. And when I put them next to the Inquisitor, there was a really big difference. And it got me thinking as well. I put them next to a Space Marine. I'm like, wow, that's pretty comparable size. And then that got me thinking, you know, with those cool shades and those visors, what does that remind me of? And this big sort of bulky silhouette. And it reminded me a lot of the artwork from Thunder Warriors. And this is what happens. I go on tangents and I get distracted very, very easily. So I ran with it. And basically I created these 3 enforcer type guys who effectively look a lot like Thunder Warriors. I even gave the other 2 the top knots. So they kind of got that new tech, old tech look. They've got, you know, a bit of a mixed assortment of weapons. One's got an Astarte shotgun. One's got a plasma gun. One's just got like a sword with like a las rifle on his back. And I kind of don't know how they'd fit into the wonderful world of the lore, but I kind of love the idea that this Inquisitor's found these 3 Thunder Warriors in stasis and was just like, they could join the team. They're part of my retinue. So unfortunately, it's not Harlan like I'd planned, but I really dig these models. I think they look really, really cool. They're quite thematic and they do look really bulky, kind of like your Thunder Warriors. And I think that's really, really cool. Next up, I had a few bits and pieces I'd found from a Stormcast kit. And the other character I really liked from the Ravenous series was, and I'm not even going to try and pronounce their name. I'm going to put it on the screen but there were these 2 warrior women with really, really cool names. And they were meant to be big, 2 meter tall, fierce swords women who are brutal in combat. One of them was had a bit of a thing with Ravenous. That's very cool. And then later, her niece actually ended up to come and join the party as well. And they just had this great whole backstory about effectively their swords being kind of sentient. They had this really, really cool background and lore. And I just thought that was such a cool idea. So I kind of used, again, a combination of kits. Stormcast, I used the Sisters of Battle head and backpack. I used the Sisters of Silence sword arms and shoulder guards. And I just kind of brought it all together. A little bit of green stuff in the middle to hold it all together and get their head to sit at the right part. Put a bit of a halo on it. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, I did again have this really tall, awesomely intimidating swordswoman who looked awesome. I think it's probably of the team, it's one of my favorites. The pose is really, really dynamic. And again, standing next to the Inquisitor, it definitely paints that picture in my head of how I kind of picture that character. I would have liked a slightly different head. I think they were meant to have really big long hair that's all plaited and braided. Again, if I was better at green stuff, maybe I would have attempted that. But I'm still really happy with how this one's come up. The last one I came up with was, it's just a guy, and by guy I mean it's a giant Ogren. Just because I love Ogrens, I have lots of little bits and pieces of spare parts lying around. And I like the character of them. And so often you see with servitors, they talk about like the servitor hauler kind of things, which are the big muscle-bound, vat-grown ones that move cargo and stuff around. And I had 2 of the robot hands left over from some of the Mechanicus, 1950s punchy bots. And once I mucked around, they actually fitted really well to the arms of the Ogren. So I just ran with it and had a bit of fun creating this kind of big Ogren enforcer. I trimmed down his armor a little bit so it was a bit more of a cut down version. So he's this mechanized Ogren who's just there to crush skulls as needed. And really provides, I guess, the big brawn of the team, that extra over-the-top strength that the more diminutive or small little Inquisitor doesn't bring to the team. So that's it, guys. That's my kill team. That's the adventure. And that's kind of the video this week. That's it. I've got some new battle reports coming up very soon. Working on those and recording those as we speak. So hopefully they'll be up very, very soon. But the important thing I do before this video ends is I need to pass this on to someone else. The challenge needs to continue because I know I had a whole bunch of fun working on this. I hope you guys had a whole bunch of fun seeing how they turned out and have been enjoying all the different creators bringing their own flavor to this. So I'm going to handball it very politely over to the team at Grimdark Gamers. These guys, if you haven't checked out, do these really, really great kill team battle reports. There's a whole bunch of love in them, and I really love it. And they're edited really slick. They look really nice. I'm always a little bit jealous of them. They really, really come up great. Not only that, but they do one of my favorite things. They do like a monthly hobby accountability video where they basically show you what they've painted and what they got done for the month, what else they've got coming in. And it really has inspired me to be a little bit more accountable with my painting and sort of set some goals to finish some things before I bring new things in. So I think it's a really, really good idea. Both of those are really worthwhile. They also have some other videos for some other games there. So please go check them out. But Grimdark Gamers, you've been challenged. The two of you need to come up with your own Inquisitor. I'm not saying you have to build any more than that. It's just the Inquisitor, but you might get carried away, and there is two of you. So let's see what you guys can come up with. My name's Reese. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And as always, we'll see you next time.